afternoon. Now we're a little behind schedule, so we're gonna have to proceed with the programs while you eat your good food. But we want to thank you again. Have you been enjoying yourself so far? All right. That is good to hear. Remember, on the back of your name badges, you have a QR code. Let us know how we're doing. Go ahead and take that survey. In addition to hashtagging BLI Chicago 2019. That's BLI Chicago 2019. You can hashtag on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, anything you know, if it's a social media, you can hashtag. So go ahead and hashtag that. So we're going to begin our program. We have a couple of presentations. Well, first and foremost, I want to thank all of our corporate partners. Everybody, I was about to say raise your glasses, but this is not a wedding. Here. We want to thank all of our corporate partners. This is in no alphabetical order because I can't think of anything in alphabetical order, but our luncheon CEO Takeover Luncheon sponsor, ADP, is in the house. Actually, I'm going to have our ADP representative come up. Is he here? Well, he was here a minute ago. If he's not here, he could be in a corporate call, because I know many of you are still conducting business while you're at this Business Leadership Institute, so we thank you, but we want to thank ADP. We want to thank BMO Harris Bank. We would like to thank HSBC. We would like to thank the company that protects us every single day, CIA, Central Intelligence Agency. We would like to thank another great bank, Wintrust Bank, Wintrust Financial Services. We would like to thank Groupon. Appreciate all my coupons. We would like to thank that real estate giant, commercial real estate giant, CBRE. We would like to thank, who is our media partner? Is the Varsity NBA in the house? Now, who am I missing? Am I missing anybody? Am I missing you, Discover? You sure? I didn't say you. I'm sorry. Am I missing anybody else? Northwestern Mitchell, I missed you too. I cannot believe I just did that. What is going on with me? Did I miss any other? Pharmaceutical medical company and not the clothing line. Let's give them a hand. You see them on every corner. Lord have mercy. They are there when you need them, especially in the middle of the night, Walgreens. Am I still missing somebody? Discover. Why do I keep forgetting you? I need to discover why I keep forgetting you. Northwestern Mutual, I keep forgetting you too? There's a reason why I keep forgetting you. I'm not forgetting you. Norma, I told you I had something for you today. So this entire year, a little bit of 2018, a little bit of 2019, and I would like my education team to join me on stage, please. That's you too, Israel. Yes. For 2018, 2019, this organization, Discover Financial Services, has been doing an excellent job with, tell them, Stacy, what they've been doing an excellent job.
Well, they have been our greatest supporter. They invited our students out to their campus, and they also provided us with swag for our leaders when they went to Washington, D.C. So we are just, and we also had some mentors that came and helped the students from Discover. So it's been a very great year. We're very appreciative of the work that they do for us and the support that they give us. So with that, Discover Financial Services is our Leaders of Tomorrow 2018-2019 Partner of the Year.
Discover, please join us on the stage. Discover. Everybody from Discover, please join us. You can hear me? Wow. Let us all recognize Discover's new hire. One of our members, Miss Valerie Jeffries, will be joining us on the stage. Let's want to come this way? Yeah. Let's come this way. You are welcome. Is this, you want to come first? No, we don't have time for that. Now, this next organization started with us in 2018, and they have been rocking with us, and I do mean rocking with us, since then. They have been putting on programming after programming in regards to your financial wealth. They have definitely been a part of different programming that has nothing to do with them. They have been a great addition to our organization. They have become a part of our family, and they have just been great all around. And so, without further ado, can I get my entire board, executive leadership team, to join us on stage? Northwestern Mutual, you are our 2019 Corporate Partner of the Year.
Quite tight. Congratulations.
All right, so we're going to get settled right into our programming. And I've been asked to introduce a young lady that I'm sure all of you are acquainted with, but I just want to talk about this person very briefly. She sent me a bio, but I'm like, girl, please. Young lady that I'm very proud of. She has been affiliated and associated with the National Black MBA Chicago chapter since 2006. She's held various leadership roles on the leadership team, starting as a committee member, becoming a director, an officer, and now she leads an extraordinary team, and she is taking center stage today. She is the leadership and visionary behind today's event. A little bit about her personally, she spent nearly 10 years in the financial services industry, and here recently she decided to take her talents to the HR industry. And she's now a business service representative for Employer and Employment Services, Inc. She is a graduate of the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, or Urbana, depending on how you pronounce it. And she is also an MBA holder from the Keller Graduate School of Business. She resides right here in the great city of Chicago, and I am talking about none other than our illustrious president, Miss Amelia Jackson.
And I promise you, I didn't tell her what to say. I did not. But you missed that part that I'm single, no children. Well, are you ready? Let's get into it. Welcome to the CEO Takeover Luncheon. You're already eating, so you know where you are. So every year we have a great either keynote speaker or a panel that graces you with some industry best practices. This year we have two distinguished CEOs from great organizations. We have Ms. Dory McHolter, who became the CEO of the YWCA Metropolitan Chicago in March 2013. She has embarked upon a journey to transform the 140-year-old social services agency to a 21st century social enterprise. Dory is moving the agency into the digital age by relaunching the Tech Girls program, which focuses on developing STEM awareness for girls ages 9 through 14 and introducing 3D development digital diversity, which provides web and mobile application development training to adult women. Very nice, okay. A proven leader in the corporate and social change sectors, Dory prides herself on being a socially conscious business leader throughout her career. She is an active member of Chicago's business community. Most recently, she was partnered at Crown Horth LLP, one of the largest accounting firms in the U.S. She also held senior positions with Snap-on Incorporated, Booz Allen Hamilton, and she also serves on the board of directors for William Barr Funds and Skyway Concession Company. She is dedicated to empowering women as a member of the Women in Entrepreneurship Institute at DePaul University and Women's Philanthropy Institute in Indiana University. Because of the civic and philanthropic leadership includes the board of directors for the Chicago Center for Arts and Technology, Chicago Child Care Society, Civic Consulting Alliance, the Civics Federation, and the State of Illinois Charitable Trust. She received her Bachelor of Business Administration degree from the University of Wisconsin-Madison, a competitor to the University of Illinois. She received her Master's of Business Administration degree from Northwestern University's Kellogg School of Management. Okay, she got me there. And she has an honorary doctorate of Humane Letters from Lake Forest College. CEO, Madam CEO, please join me on stage. Thank you very much. Let's give her a hand. But wait, there's more. There's more. Miss Elizabeth Betsy Zinger is the first female CEO at 1871. Now the #1 ranked university affiliated tech incubator in the world. Previous to 1871, Betsy was the Chief Innovation Officer at the Kellogg Graduate School of Management, Northwestern University, responsible for portfolio innovation, as well as integrating technology into the Kellogg educational experience. From 2011 to September 2015, she served as Associate Dean of Degree Programs and Dean of Students. Prior to Kellogg, she served as a principal in McKinsey & Company's Chicago office, where she led the firm's life insurance operations and technology practice, and co-led its financial institution operations and technology practice. Zinger holds an MBA from Harvard Business School and received a BA in economics from, okay, all right. Well, I don't know what you with these competitors. The Ohio State University. where she graduated with distinction. I graduated on time. Amen. She is a member of Ann and Robert H. Laurie Children's Hospital of Chicago and the Museum of Science and Industry. I'm gonna need some tickets. Board of Directors and advisor and investor in many young technology companies. CEO, Miss Elizabeth Betsy Zinger. Please join us on stage. Anywhere you want to go, where would you like to be? Okay. I guess I'm center stage today. All right, let's move this back. I don't know if I really need the mic, but I'm gonna use it today because we paid for it. All right. Y'all pray for me. Sometimes on Fridays I don't have it all. All right. Oh yeah. Thank you very much. So we're just gonna have a good time today. Is that all right with you? All right. It's all right with me as well. So ladies, I just want to hear from you. Could you describe your CEO journey? Break it down. What obstacles have you faced? What mistakes have you made and you learned from? What mistakes or what obstacles do you still face? I know this is a loaded question, but just walk us through it.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm thrilled to be here, and such a pleasure to be with Betsy, a great colleague, as well as Amelia. I already see that this is Friday, and it looks like we're going to have a lot of fun. So I like to say it's a nice little party on a panel. So we'll make this happen. So I've been, as Amelia described in my bio, I've been the CEO for the YWCA Metropolitan Chicago for the last 6 years. And from a journey perspective, what got me here is that I actually served on the board of the YWCA for 8 years prior to that. And so I was on the board when I was at a partner in the accounting firm. And for me, getting here went like this. The organization was an interesting financial position, and so we had, as board members, had transitioned the CEO at the time, and so as I was one of the more tenured board members, folks would come to me during the search process and ask sort of what we thought we needed as a CEO. So for me, I was just like, well, we need someone that could do this, we need someone that could do this, we need someone that could do all these things, and then I found myself really being obsessed with, I want to do those things. Mm-hmm. And it was at a time at the firm where I had actually, I had joined the firm prior to that with my partners that I had worked with at Arthur Andersen at the time. And so it was just a good time for me to consider what I was going to do next with my career. I could absolutely stay at the firm. I was having a good time there. But I thought I could really bring something to the YWCA because, yes, it's a nonprofit, but I always felt that we needed a more business perspective or business orientation. And so I was able to come in and bring that type of background to it. I figure Betsy and I have a similar background in the sense that have had big firm consulting experience, and so mine was at Booz Allen Hamilton, not at well, you're at McKinsey, right? so they're all the same right now. They're all the same. The Big Ten schools aren't, though, but the accounting for the firms are.
Mine's the best.
Yeah. But having said that, so just thought I could bring a different perspective in, and it's been great for us. So when I first joined the organization, we were about $10 million, and 6 years later, we're $25 million. And being able to impact the work that we've been able to do has been part of that. So me being a finance person, I'm like, yeah, I look at the numbers, but the reality of it is that every dollar we increase in revenue, we're able to create more impact in the community. And we serve actually over 200,000 women and families across the Chicago metropolitan area. So that to me is what's important and why we need to grow and do this. I actually think that there's a lot more with the mistake questions, so I figured that if we could kick it to Betsy to at least hear her background, and then we can get back into that if that works.
I'm fine with it.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Amelia, for inviting me. I know we've talked over years,
Yes.
trying to figure out a way to connect, and
Yes.
Dory is a new board member for us at 1871, so always a pleasure to spend time with her. You heard Amelia talk a little bit about my background. I was a life insurance partner, and then I was a dean of students at a school I didn't go to, and then I was at a chief innovation officer, and now I run the #1 university-affiliated tech incubator in the world, and that is not a traditional path, right? I think we can agree on that. I think we can also agree that, at least on paper, I'm way cooler now than I was 8 years ago when I was a life insurance partner. It's more fun to say, I run a tech hub, even though most people don't know what that means. I think I'd never aspired to be a CEO. It was not something that was written down in a journal that this is what I want to do over time. I think what I've learned about myself is that the roles that I excel in are the ones where my job is to help somebody else be successful. So my job at McKinsey was to wake up every morning and help my client be successful. At Kellogg, it was to help a student be successful, and now my job is to work to increase the probability of success of every single founder, of which there are 450 at 1871, build their business in a successful way and shorten the time distance to reach that success. My path to get to where I am, sort of, why I was chosen, and if we have time, I'll tell you what my then 5-year-old son said about that process. I've been in the role for just under 18 months. Was that I was when I left McKinsey and I went to Northwestern, which is a long story in and of itself, which I'm happy to share if we want to have that conversation. I started working with entrepreneurs that were students at Northwestern and started advising them and investing in their companies and getting really excited about being part of that startup world, even though I was not myself running a startup. And then when I transitioned to the Chief Innovation Officer role, I had more and more exposure to leading tech around the country, and it was when my avocation and my vocation actually kind of merged into one in a way that was super fulfilling. And an executive recruiter, I was certainly familiar with 1871, had been on their stage a couple of times, but wouldn't have been considered certainly not a board member or a tremendously active contributor. But a search firm called me in October of 2017 and said, would you even be willing to have a conversation with us? And at the time, Howard Tillman, who many of you probably know or know of, was the CEO. And he's a guy who started at least 12 startup company, so a really different background, and he is an amazing individual, and he and I are really different. And so it was a conversation about, are you ready for somebody like me, who has a very different background than Howard, or do you need another Howard-like person to take 1871, which at the time was about 5.5 years old, to the next level? And that, that process lasted a couple months of both exploring that, and then I started in April of 2018, and it's been a phenomenal experience so far.
I'm proud of you, ladies. I am so excited and honored to be on the stage with you and to learn your story. Now, on my trajectory to CEO, I don't know when that's going to happen, but just so I am clear what not to do, tell me a little bit about those mistakes that we were talking about.
Sure. All right. So I think how many people in the room have made a mistake? All right. So I ask that pretty often, and you'll be surprised about how many rooms I'm in where half the people raise their hand and half the people don't. You sort of say, that's sort of interesting, right? So I think we can talk about specific mistakes, but I think the big picture on mistakes is that we all make them, and if you're not making them, of course, you're not pushing yourself far enough, or you're not sort of trying hard enough. Frankly, you're being too safe. But I have several life mottos, and one of my life mottos is that people will remember your response to the bounce versus the bounce. So I've made big mistakes, small, where I've trusted, when I was at McKinsey, where I trusted team members of my team to be doing analysis the right way, and I wasn't checking in with them as well as I should have, and turns out that they did wrong analysis and I didn't catch it, and then it snowballed into a bigger issue that we presented something to a client that wasn't perfect. We recover from that, but you learn from every single one of those times, right? I've served when I was at Northwestern trying to influence tenure-line faculty. Are there any tenure-line faculty here? Right. They don't necessarily they don't have to do anything that you ask them to do. And so you can make mistakes on the influence side of the house pretty easily, regardless of how strong of a relationship we have with them. So, every day I make small mistakes, hopefully not, huge, big mistakes, but the motto comes from the fact that nobody remembers the mistake as long as you respond to it in a positive way and pick yourself up the ground and move forward the next day and try not to do the same thing again. And so I think that certainly when you're younger in your career, you're so worried that any mistake you make will be debilitating for you moving forward. And the lesson that I try to impart on younger people at the beginning of their career is you make them and you learn from them and you take accountability for it, and then you just push on, and people will give you, will reward you for that, and will have no memory or whatever of the mistake that you made.
There are two things that I heard you say. The number one thing that I heard you say was accountability. There are so many CEOs, past and present, that are not taking accountability. Can you speak to that and any mistakes that you may have made?
So I have a different motto, but we come to the same conclusion from that motto. My motto is that I don't make mistakes. So I didn't raise my hand.
Actually, I've read
That is not what we talked about on our conference call.
That's why I said, on this question. Because Betsy
did say
knows.
that.
I
You
did.
did
I
say
said,
it.
Because, well, and this is the reason, though. There's a couple things. And I say I don't make mistakes. I do have some colleagues with me today that they may have a different answer to this question. But I'll tell you, and the reason I say that, because I think you hit the nail on the head, the reason I just orient from the giddy up that I don't make mistakes is because it's freeing. It's very free when you know you don't make a mistake. Because I do believe I have a lot of unplanned learning opportunities.
That is a new way to put it.
So,
Unplanned. Did you hear me, board? Your president's gonna have some new unplanned. Okay, go ahead.
but the difference is because, and I have an appreciation for this even more now that I've been working with the YWCA, because we do a lot of work with human services, particularly Rachel, trauma. There's a lot of trauma to me in the word mistakes. Like it's a heavy word. People hold on to that word. So I tell my team this: you can't make a mistake. You can learn. That's all you can do. And I go back because even the things that so-called people wanted to label mistakes in my career, I guarantee you now, I often call this job my Slumdog Millionaire moment. Okay. Spoiler alert, if you haven't seen it, the movie is really old now, so I don't feel bad about telling you the conclusion. But the gentleman knew all the answers to the questions because of all the life experiences he had. Mm-hmm. And any one of those experiences, particularly by our standards, could have been labeled a horrible experience. But he literally knew the answers to the questions because of that experience. So I look at it the same way. Yes, when I was earlier in my career, I changed jobs a lot, and I had one of my senior leaders from Arthur Andersen at the time tell me, you shouldn't take this job, or you shouldn't do that. And it just turned out, I'm so glad I didn't listen to him, because what he specifically told me, because earlier in my career, when I left Arthur Andersen, I went to Bell South, and I went to Booz Allen, and I was about to move back to Chicago. And he's like, I was 28 at the time, and he's like, you're getting too old to be making all these decisions around your career. And I was like, what? And so he's like, it's going to be a mistake, right? And it worked out because actually when I left Booz Allen, I went to a healthcare consulting firm, and the amount of information even that I received and having that type of experience. And so I was just able to get all this variety of industry experience at a really early age in my career when, quite frankly, you're doing all the grind work anyway, so you just learn a lot more sometimes. And for that reason, I know so much about random things that you would never believe I would know about. Even with working with my team, we were, putting some toolkits together for the child care providers. And I was like, yeah, we can sell them off the back of our reading referral truck or resource truck that we bring out into the community, just like we did at Snap-on, except we were selling tools and not, reading toolkits, right? So it's all of those random experiences that I've learned from. But if I listened to them, those would have been considered mistakes. And I just don't even relate to the word. So people ask me all the time, what are your biggest challenges? I don't know. I just learn from everything. And I don't label anything a mistake because, quite frankly, it was a foundation or an element that took me to another space that I would not have had that experience in.
So remind me when I go on my next interview, whenever that happens, to take you with me. I know, I work for you. So that you can be, it could be for a promotion, but I'm just gonna have her in my ear. You're HR, I'm not supposed to be telling you that. Oh my God. Okay. Let's switch gears because you said something, someone told you just bear with me. Someone told you, and that someone just so happened to be a him, what you could not do or what you shouldn't do. Let's talk about that as it relates to obstacles. What have you faced, even from, bear with me, our male counterparts in that realm, or even in general?
This comes to my other perspective that I'll share shortly. But I think in that particular situation, they were giving me a perspective because, again, this gentleman was Arthur Andersen, had spent 30 years of his career at Arthur Andersen. That wasn't going to be my reality. I always like to say I was sort of pre-millennial. I had, 5 jobs in the first 7 years of my career. Like, I was moving. But it also reflected, like, I learned and moved on really quickly. And if I learned and I felt that that opportunity was maxed out, I keep it moving. And so, but what that taught me, hearing his perspective on that, is that the people can only give you their advice on their perspective, period. They have a specific frame of reference. So I always say, when people are like, oh, what's your best advice? I was like, don't take other people's advice. Because one, and I don't want other people's fears showing up in my career, right? And that was his fear. Like, he had a specific perspective that said, you were going to, do this and sort of move up and whatever the case may be, and that just wasn't my perspective. So I know this is supposed to be about obstacles, but it's so hard for me because I really don't think about them as obstacles.
So optimistic. I like it.
No, well, there's always a way, right? And the challenge is that people get stuck in the problem. For example, we just did something recently at our organization. It was all hands on deck. We had to get this big grant out. And it was challenging because it just, it's a lot of cooks in the kitchen and all this. And the first thing popped up on my calendar, people want to do a debrief about it. I'm like, okay, so essentially that's code for people want to bitch about everything that went wrong in the process. And I'm really not here for it. And so I scheduled a call for a month out because I need them to reflect and think about it. Okay. And then I'm going to send them a constructive process that we're going to have a conversation about what we can do forward. So my thing even with obstacles, I try not to get stuck in the problem right away and just think about, okay, if this is what we're experiencing, what's next?
Okay, fair enough.
So it's not just being blindly optimistic. It's like, let's get over that. We got to get forward. I just like to keep moving.
But your counterpart over there, she has a different look on her face.
No. I was thinking one of my other life mottos is no unmanaged outcomes, which would come to this other thing, which is sort of this idea of, regardless of what my team has heard me say this, they're laughing, but when you have a big event or a conference or something you're trying to get done, you think about all the things that can go wrong. You get out ahead of it before they have a chance to go wrong, and if they do start to go wrong, you already have a plan to kind of still get to the outcome that you want. And so that was sort of how I was thinking about your debrief. In terms of gender, I've actually been quite fortunate. I worked at a consulting firm where I truly felt it was a meritocracy. All my mentors were male. All my clients were male. And I was, a partner there for a long time and felt like I had a very healthy, supportive experience. And then I went to Northwestern, and 80% of the administrators were female. My boss, the dean, was female. I was the second most senior person on the non-school side, and now I'm the boss and I'm the female leader of an organization that is also we're about 25 people strong, and we're 75% female. And so I've had a sort of a different view. Mm-hmm. Having said that, a lot of the feedback I got as I was coming up through was around the need for me to be more aggressive and or assertive, to push the envelope farther, to be edgier, because again, when you're mentored and work with only men, they have a certain frame of reference in how they behave and how they approach situations, et cetera. And I have a different way of how I influence and listen and communicate. And so they kept pushing me on that. And I did, some of it was valid and fair, and I got better on it. My confidence rose, but I also had to show up as myself to be successful. And you have to figure out where your strength comes from and how you show up as your best self, and in what environments and what team structures and what what your job function is focused on, et cetera, and that's different for all of us. And
So being authentic and being true to you.
yeah,
Okay, so you mentioned another word that stood out, influence.
yeah.
So last year,
Most important skill I think there is.
absolutely. Last year we spoke about the sphere of influence. So tell me a little bit about the impact that you're making within the company that you're in or companies that you're working with, as well as in the communities that you are in as well.
Okay, you want me to start? So I think influence is one of those things that you don't get taught in school. There's no curriculum per se on it, at least I've not come across that. And I truly think it's the most important skill that people need to have, particularly as the world continues to change and you're interacting with more and more folks and boundaries are going down and things are more virtual and how you do it in those kind of situations. And influence, sometimes people hear influence and they think manipulation. And I think it's relationship building to drive to a shared goal and get something done. And so actually we've done it once, training on influence for founders and for my team members at 1871. So I feel like I've been trying to influence people every day for 25 years. It's been a client or a team member or a student or a faculty member or an entrepreneur and now a team member again. And our job at 1871 is to drive economic development, and that takes on a couple of different forms. One is, as I said at the beginning, helping our entrepreneurs be successful. We measure three things at a sort of a meta level. One is the percentage of startups that are successful once they leave 1871. The second is how many jobs got created, and the third is how much capital has been raised by those companies. And right now, after 7 years, we're at a 60% success rate. So of all the startup companies that have ever come through, which is roughly 1,200, 60% are still alive and growing and thriving in the city of Chicago, which is about 700 companies. Those 700 companies have created close to 12,000 jobs. If you think
That deserves a hand clap.
And if you think about an average job being at $65,000 a year, if they're a tech job, let's just take that as a placeholder, that's $760 million of annual salaries that are being put into the city of Chicago, which I think matters.
It
and
does
then
matter.
those companies have raised $1.5 billion in capital, which we don't own any share of the company, but for me what matters is that that means that there's outside market validation that those companies have the potential to grow and scale and be bigger and employ more people and drive more economic activity. And so all day long, I'm working with my team to do everything we can to support the 450 that are still in-house that aren't part of those numbers, that they're successful, as well as how do we take the magic of 1871 that's inside the merchandise mart, and how many people by show of hands have been there? Andre, my favorite, so Andre's at a lot of our things. Yeah, great, so a lot of you have been there. So take that magic out into the neighborhoods of Chicago with an aspiration to be in basically all of them by the end of 2022, and through partnerships, right? We're not gonna have many 1871s everywhere, but how do we connect with the incubator activity that's going on? And that is a massive influence exercise, because we're not trying to give the answer. We're trying to be the best partner we can to those that are in those communities and know how to operate in those communities.
So you're kind of a change agent for diversity of thought. So you're encouraging, them to kind of think outside the box and bring something to the table.
Yes, at times. I think it's also true, though, that in some neighborhoods they have the mini version of an 1871, but it's not as well resourced because it just can't be, right? And so there are resources that aren't about money that we can share.
Okay.
So it's our curriculum, our mentors, our brand, where we can show up together in certain environments. So they've already created the space to convene community members to help them build business. But I think just the most important thing that's going on with respect to my world is that job growth, 95% of job growth comes from small businesses. And for the last 4 or 5 years, more small businesses die every day than are born, which is a 5-year 5 years ago that wasn't the case. And so if your new company engine is broken, your job creation engine is broken. And so what are the things that we can do in partnership across the city of Chicago to catalyze new business development, regardless of what problem you're trying to solve? to therefore then create jobs and create better markets in all the different neighborhoods, not just the Loop.
That makes sense. Dory?
I was so entrenched in all of Betsy's answers that I forgot the question.
Maybe I just talked too long.
No,
I
it was
talked for
just
too
great.
much
It was
time.
just I forgot.
I forgot the question too in front of my face.
It was just really good. It was really good information.
The
I was
sphere of
listening.
influence. How do you make an impact in the companies and the communities? And I know you are in the community in which you serve.
There we go. Thank you.
welcome.
So it's interesting. So I always say that, I love the work that 1871 and Betsy's doing. I just think it's such an important part of our overall marketplace. And so what I like to think is that at the YWCA, our business is the business of human services. And so we've been given a charity format to do it in, but at the end of the day, the outcomes that we're looking at is the improved lives of the people that we serve. And so we're doing that from a couple different ways. We talk about that if our mission, which is for 140 years, we've been at the work of eliminating racism and empowering women. That's a lot, and clearly we ain't there yet, right? And so what does that mean? And so what we've been able to do is say that if we eliminate racism and empower women, what is the outcome? The outcome is that we have created an inclusive marketplace where everyone thrives, regardless of how they identify, right? And so for us, that becomes sort of the problem that we're working towards and the outcome that we're working towards, because let's keep it real. Eliminating racism, empowering, that's just very esoteric. So we have to get more concrete with what it is that we're actually up to. So if we all anchor on the fact that our mission is ultimately going to create a marketplace where everyone thrives, the way we've decided to look at it is that we have been supporting women in a number of capacities for the last 140 years, but we've been preparing women, but now we also have to prepare the marketplace for the women that we've been working with. So we're literally taking it from two different approaches. So on the area of what we do for direct services, we have broken the work down into what we call 3 empowerment priorities. So it's safety and wellness, education and training, and economic sustainability. And so we're doing everything from, we operate the rape crisis lines in the city of Chicago. We operate a women's health exchange where you can purchase health insurance, and continue to look at healthy and nutrition options. We actually have an urban farm. Shout out to Letitia and putting an urban farm in Emmett Till on 65th and Langley, 66th and Langley. So really getting deep in community with those services. On the education and training front, we're in early learning. We're providing youth STEM, so we're doing a lot of work in that space. And on the economic sustainability front, we are doing financial empowerment. And for us, financial empowerment is a really big deal. It's not just financial literacy. For the most part, people understand savings and checking accounts. We're talking about financial empowerment. We need people to understand investing. We need to understand a lot of different things about how the economy works and what that looks like. And so, we kind of go hard in this because we've been in, for example, we look at the South Side, we've had a physical location on the South Side for at least 60 years. And where we sit, the community, in my opinion, hasn't evolved that much. So we've been taking a hard look at what does it mean for us to really get involved and do our work to impact the community, not just the individuals we serve, but the broader community better. So having said that, we launched a Small Business Development Center, which Vince Williams is a leader of that. And so that's been huge for us, and I know we'll be partnering with and supporting 1871, even coming further south. And then Letitia runs our workforce development, so we're looking at jobs and ownership, because that is important. We continue to talk about the financial empowerment piece, and we talk about sort of generational poverty that is occurring, but we believe at the YWCA the only way to get rid of generational poverty is to create generational wealth, and that's where the system comes in. And so this is where we're starting to look at the system and ownership structures and equity. So even the economic development that we're looking at in the communities that we're in, we're asking people to support not just jobs, but equity in the businesses as well, which is huge because people don't give up equity easily, right? And so how do we make that happen, and how do we support those systems and processes? Because even the $15, that's just not going to cut it when you're that deep into poverty. So what else can we be doing? So what we like to think that we're doing for the marketplace is really being strategic and thoughtful around how do we bring together the human services side of that into the systemic level sides. And corporate America plays a huge role in how we see creating a marketplace where everyone can, an inclusive marketplace where everyone thrives. So one of the things we did on the system side, we actually launched an exchange-traded fund on the New York Stock Exchange for women's empowerment, being the first nonprofit to do so. So now we have a roadmap that says, corporate America, these are the 19 things that we need you to do to empower women. It's not that complicated. And so we're asking people, look at your board, look at your workforce, have sexual harassment policies. 1871 is a nonprofit. They have, what, 1,000 plus members? How many members?
1,500.
1,500 members, and they required all of their members to go through our sexual harassment training. It's not that complicated, right? If we want safe and healthy workplaces, we need to do all of these things. So we're looking at things from both the individual level and the systemic level. And so when we talk about impact, I mean, we serve 200,000 families across the metropolitan area, but we also look at how we partner with corporations and what those things do in terms of creating a better economy and a better marketplace. I'll throw out one last thing. You know, there was a study done by McKinsey that said that if we were to create equality for women in the marketplace, that we would generate over $58 billion annually to our GDP. And to me, this is the work that we're ultimately trying to get to, that, you know, if we do this well, we will create a stronger economy for everyone. And so we're just really focused on making that happen. So, you know, as much as I love charities and nonprofits, we're not just pet and puppies. Not that pet and puppies aren't important, because I love pets, but we're talking about human lives here and human services. And so we're literally just trying to really dig in and make that connection to what we see every day and how this room and the corporations that are represented can actually create a stronger economy for all of us.
I like how you brought the synergy together, especially with the corporate partners in the room. How can we work together to build a greater community that's bigger than ourselves?
Yeah, it takes all of us. I mean, nonprofits are 7% of the economy. It's like, we don't want to work that hard. There's a lot of other things that we can be doing together to make it a better place.
Absolutely. So with that being said, synergy and working together, I want to hear a little bit more about you. For the last question, what is your legacy? What do you want people to remember about Dory and Betsy?
So
I stumped them.
I didn't read to the bottom of the question list. I didn't see that.
it was on there. It was on there. It was.
Betsy clearly has a better memory. I can't even remember the last question or what's on the list. So.
So I think there are two things. I think the first is that people see me as somebody who has actively owned their life. And so, you know, I was sitting at McKinsey 10 years into my career there. The economic crisis hits. I'm serving financial institutions. They want to take a break from us. I filled my plate with all things social sector, so I served the Ohio State University for a little while. Economic development in Columbia, you know, did some stuff that was not with the firm that lit me up in ways that I wasn't expecting, and that led me to choose to leave that path and pursue academia. But that, you know, again, that was not a traditional choice, but it also, and some of you might have felt like this at some point in your life, but in 2009 I was sitting there feeling like I was stuck in like this box where I could only talk about, you know, 2 or 3 things, and that I was becoming this uninteresting person, which is not my view of myself, right? It might be other people's view of me, but it is not my view of myself. And so I wrote, at the time I was 37, and I wrote down the 40 things I wanted to do in my life by the time I was 40. And that simple action completely changed my perspective on my job and owning my life. So number one is that, and we don't have time, but we can talk at a different time about what was on the list and what I'd finished and blah, blah. The second thing, though, I think that's really important to me is that and sort of how I measure my impact is, you know, how many people am I actually helping? And that could be helping on a personal perspective or a professional perspective. Like, you know, my choice, like, it's not about wealth creation for me. I mean, I was making a lot, and I keep going this way. So this is not, you know, it's an active choice to not
keep going that way too.
You know, But it's, how many people can I help either directly or indirectly by bringing resources to bear so that they can live the life that fulfills their own potential?
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Betsy. Dora, you remember the question?
Yeah.
You said-
I got this one. I remember this one. And I guess for me, it's just really simple. It's just that I want people to know that I lived a life that represented exactly who I was, that what you see is what you get, that in my full authenticity. And I want to, hopefully, my legacy will be that I actually create a world where people know that everyone is loved and valued.
That was a Facebook quote. Everybody, give a hand to our CEOs who took over this luncheon. Thank you so much, ladies, for joining us, putting up with me. And what we're going to do now is we're going to feast on some more good knowledge from the men's panel at our town hall, which is right next door, so you don't have to go too far. But once again, let's give it up for our CEOs, Miss Dory Quickwater of the YWCA and Miss Betsy Zinger of 1871. But don't go anywhere, because we have something for you that represents a little token of our appreciation. Now, today you can become an honorary member of the National Black MBA Association. But next year, we're going to ask you to make your first payment